Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in another episode of In the Swamp with OGRE. Today we have Kevin McGourty on the line. He is a leadership trainer. He's also an author. He's working on a book, and he's also a real estate agent. Kevin, welcome aboard. How are you doing today?
Good, and thanks so much for inviting me in.
Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. So, leadership training. What exactly is that?
Yeah, great question. So with leadership training, basically what we end up doing was we work with government employees. We bring them into a classroom. Usually there's about 12 to 20 of them in a classroom, and we'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We get done at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's an all-day session, and we're training them on different components having to do with leadership. Some of the classes have to do with like leadership foundations, some of the basic principles. If you're coming into a leadership position, it has to do with communication, de-escalating. So we're trying to train and develop new leaders as well as existing leaders on some basic concepts when it comes to leadership.
All right. So to just make it simple for us, you're
Yeah,
a coach. So you're helping develop them and get them to the point of, how to de-escalate if there's just a tension or a situation within their departments.
right. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Some of these individuals are working, they may be working in call center environments, and they're dealing with, sometimes it's one-on-one direct client relationships that they're dealing with. So we try to help them in both ways.
Oh, okay. And then the book. So emotional intelligence for and success in real estate agents. That's pretty deep. So how did you
Yeah.
come up with this idea?
I was in a doctoral program, and I was looking at trying to come up with a dissertation, which is it's your major project. Usually it's about 175, 200 pages that you're trying to write. And I was looking for something to research, and I had heard in the beginning of the program a few years before, I'd heard a topic called emotional intelligence. Now I had heard the term before, and I actually saw a book years ago, but I never really got into it. I didn't even know what it really was. And so I started digging into a little bit more about what is emotional intelligence, what's involved. And then I'm also a real estate agent. And I started thinking, well, I wonder if emotional intelligence has an impact on realtors. You would think it does. How much does it help them when it comes to success? And so out of that, I just kind of came out of that thinking, how about if I do research on emotional intelligence and how it helps realtors become more successful? And so it took me about over 2 years of research and writing and writing and writing to trying to see what has already been developed out there in the market, what's working, what isn't working. There's a number of research papers that have been written. And so I used this as a base, and then also did my own research when it came to that, where I sent out assessments on emotional intelligence, an emotional intelligence assessment, and I sent it out to realtors, and they went ahead and did the assessments and sent it back to me, and then I processed it.
Okay. And you said it took you about 2 years to get it done.
Yes, yeah, over 2 years.
And how many people did you interview or did you go through the process of getting tested?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, great question. So when I started, I had a list of about 2,500 realtors, and I sent out 2 surveys because I had to have them do the surveys. The first one was 11 question demographic survey, age bracket, gender, those kind of things, education, things like that. So that was a pretty easy one, just 11 questions. But the other one was the more challenging one. It was a 144 question emotional intelligence assessment. And let me tell you, it is tough to get realtors to sit down and take a 144 question survey. I have to say myself, that's not something I typically would do. And so I owe a debt of gratitude to the realtors who are willing to sit down. I mean, you're talking 45 minutes to an hour. They have many other rather than, but I had a number of them that were willing to just take the time. I begged, I pleaded, I borrowed, I harassed, whatever I had to do to try to get them to take this. And so I sent out 2,500 invitations to realtors, and I had 200 of them agree to do it. So that was okay. That was good. And I had about actually 100 that actually completed both surveys. So it was a little bit of time on their part, but it really helped me. And so what I did was I looked at who they are, what they do. I looked at the number of homes that they sold by going out to the MLS, pulling the reports, so I could compare how they did that. Because one of the challenges I ran into is, how do you define success? How do you define success in the real estate market? It's tough to do that. And when you're doing a research project like that, what they want you to do is they want you to look back and say, well, how did other people define it? There wasn't anybody that had really defined what success mean in real estate. So I had to define that, and I ended up basically saying, if you can sell the average number of homes sold in a year, then that would make you successful. I kind of based it off of what we do in education, right? If you get a C or better, you get an average or better, that's passing. So what I did was I went to the MLS in the state of Arizona, and I looked at how many homes were sold by the realtors. I took the average, and I basically, with everyone who completed the assessment, I looked and say, did they sell an average number of homes for the year or above that? And if they did, I considered them to be successful. And then I looked at how their scores were, and I compared the two.
Oh wow, that's a whole lot of whole lot of surveying and going through things.
It was, yes, it was.
And I guess in our business, success really depends on the realtor.
It really does.
So some want to grow business, expand business, and some are just, hey, you know what? If I sell a house a month, but I can spend a bunch of free time with my family, I'm good with that. So how many out of the 100, curious, were at or above the average?
Well, I basically they actually scored pretty well with the assessment. Of the 100 that completed it, they were average or above, so they were successful. And I just simply compared it to their scores. And to kind of let me kind of bounce back into that just a little bit. So when it came to their scores, they scored. They scored about the average scores that you get on those assessments. So nationally, I compared them to what was done nationally, and their scores were about average for those that were successful. So I guess across the board, they hit in that average range.
Okay. So what did you find with emotional intelligence tied to real estate agents?
Yeah,
How important is that?
That's a good question. There's a few things that came out of it. When it came to let me just kind of go to the demographic side of it, where I asked how many were full-time and how many were part-time. And I think you'll find it to be kind of interesting. I found out that when it comes to full-time realtors, full-time realtors are nearly 4 times more likely to be successful than part-time realtors. So if you're looking at getting into real estate and you think you're going to do it part-time, just realize you're going against the odds. Yes, you can be successful, but if you want to give yourself the greatest chance to be successful, you're 4 times more likely to be successful in real estate if you can go at it full-time versus part-time.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's something else that's kind of interesting that you might find interesting. When it comes to emotional intelligence, there was about 21% of them had ever received training on emotional intelligence. So
I would think that would be correct.
Yes.
So I know a lot of us that are in the business try to find coaches.
Yes.
And the ones that have been in coaching several times, like myself, try to find transformational coaches and realize that it all ties in.
Yes.
It's only just get up and do the activities. It's actually get up and then learn how to better yourself so you can do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's look at what do we mean by emotional intelligence, because that's typically the first question that I get when someone asks that. And it was the first question I asked when I heard the term, and I was just like, well, what does it even mean? Emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, the simple definition is your ability to identify your own emotions and manage your own emotions. Okay. That's the easy part. That's the easy part. Your ability to identify your own emotions and your ability to manage your own emotions. Again, that's the easy part. The harder part is the second half. The second half is your ability to identify the emotions of other people and your ability to manage those emotions. That gets a lot tougher. Now, if you were to put this on a scale, it actually takes a higher skill level, a skill set to go up each level. So the first level at the bottom takes a lower skill set, which is to simply identify your own emotions. So, and if I were to ask you right now, which you can, you don't have to answer, but if I were to ask you, how are you feeling right now? Right now, how are you feeling?
Right now, I'm feeling really good.
Okay, so what emotion would you say you're feeling?
I'm excited.
Okay, excited. Okay, and I thought you would be. I figured that would be the. So you're excited. Bingo. That's level 1. That's the easy one, right? You identified your emotions, excited. Okay. Right. Now the next level you go up is, okay, so how are you going to manage that, Ed? Because excitement is great, but sometimes it can get the best of us. Sometimes it can put us over the top, and then it can work against us, or we might end up finding ourselves burning more energy than we should. So the second part of it is, okay, so Ed, how are you going to manage your excitement so it doesn't go too far or you don't lose it? So let me just kind of ask you, not to put you on the spot, but it's your show.
Right.
What do you do to kind of manage your excitement to keep it from working for you?
So I try to take a deep breath and like step back. So I
Excellent.
just kind of, what's going on? Let me see. And then, so it happens every time I do the show. I get excited because I'm really excited, and then I start getting nervous. So I have
Yes.
to take a deep breath and just don't let it kill me.
Gotcha. Well, as they say, right? What doesn't kill you makes you strong.
Exactly.
You're good. So that's the easy part. You identify your emotion. Right now, you manage it. You know how to manage it. That's the easy part. Second, the harder part, going up a level, is, okay, so if you're with your team members or you're with a client, how are they feeling? What emotion are they feeling? How can you identify? That's really important with real estate, because if you misread people, it can set that tone of the conversation going down the wrong path. So you want to be able to try to identify the emotions. And what are you going to be looking at? You're looking at everything you can, non-verbal, verbal, what they're doing, what they're not doing. You're really tuned in, trying to hone in on that. But the third level really is your ability to identify the emotions of the other person, whatever it might be, client, team member, spouse, could be whatever. And then the top level, which takes the highest skill set, is your ability to be able to manage their emotions. And that gets tougher, because you got to make sure that they're not tripping your triggers, your hot buttons, right? They might be frustrated, or worse, they might be disrespectful to you.
Right.
Now that starts tripping something on you, and now you got to try to manage that emotion, and you're also trying to manage theirs. So it gets pretty complicated. Now, this is where it gets pretty dicey when it comes to realtors. Being a real estate agent myself, I got to be able to get up in the morning. I got to be able to, in a situation, I got to be able to identify my emotions, whatever that might be in that moment, manage that emotion. I got to be able to identify the emotions of my client and try to manage the emotions. And I even say that, even as tough as that is, it's not as hard as you then use it to the other side of the transaction. You now have to be able to identify sometimes the emotions of the other agents. If I'm the buying agent, I got to be able to identify the emotions of the selling agent, and somehow try to manage that, which gets not easy. Sometimes you got to be able to talk them down. Hey, settle down. We're going to get through this. Now you're trying to coach them and work through their, help them with their emotions. And then indirectly, you're trying to reach their client. Well, they're saying, my client is upset about this, and I think they're going to cancel this contract. And you're like, easy. You're trying to bring those emotions down. You're trying to manage your emotions, their client's emotions. It gets pretty tricky trying to do that. And that's why I would say the importance, it's absolutely critical to the success of realtors to get training on emotional intelligence, to know what it is, to identify it, to manage it, to make it work for you so you can become more successful.
That makes total sense, because that is really the day in a realtor. You wake up in the morning, you're getting yourself set for the day, then you get a phone call, or you get an email, you get a text, and then all of a sudden the world's on fire, and you got to bring everything back. And then by the end of the day, you hope that you saved the deal, and it's like, okay, back to tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you talk, and from a real estate standpoint, you're coaching, you're a counselor, you're a coach, you're, a teacher, you're a friend. You're all those, you're putting all those kind of hats. But emotions are probably, there's probably few transactions out there in our lives that are more stressful than trying to buy or sell a piece of property or a house or home.
Yeah, so we deal with that on a daily basis. I've been dealing with that for a long time, and it usually is. I've been in the middle of a husband and wife fighting, and hey, we're gonna sell the house. We're done trying to keep them at bay and meet with them, and then you get to closing, and one of them still wants to make the relationship work. So they're saying, we're not gonna sign. I'm keeping the house. Like,
yes.
You can't do that. We have a buyer here. We have to do what we agreed to do. So yeah, I can totally get that. How would you suggest that realtors get training for this stuff?
Yeah, great question. So, there's seminars and workshops that are out there for emotional intelligence. Obviously, I'm available to be able to do some coaching as well and to do some training on there. But there's a lot of really good coaches out there. There are some good companies and organizations that are out there that have assessments. I think one of the things that's really helpful, because you want, if you can, you want to try. It's not always easy, but you want to try to quantify people's emotions, kind of where they're at. So they have assessments that are out there, which help you kind of see, okay, where am I today, and what do I need to work. I work for a company called Genos International. They have an assessment that they do. So people take the assessment, they get a score back. Then you sit down with them, and basically it's just a coaching session. Okay, this is where you're at. And you're basically kind of tailor making this thing for them so that they can understand, okay, what kind of a game plan can we put together to try to help you move forward with this? Have emotions working for you, not against you.
Okay, yeah, and that's a great point. You have to have the emotions, because sometimes we have to keep our emotions in check as well. Most
Yes.
of the time, we need to figure out where we are, so our state has to be in the right place to be able to fulfill and help other people through theirs.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think the coaching. So you're available. So I'm going to make sure to put your information on this, because
Right.
I think it's huge to have somebody that's in the real estate industry,
Right.
to coach you through this, because they know the triggers. They know what's gonna, like, you know what makes us tick, because you're one of
Yes.
us.
Yes.
You deal with this on a daily basis when you try to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you're this close to the deal and you're just ready to sign it, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to cancel this. And you're like, wait, and you're just trying to, you're looking for the voice of reason at this moment to kind of come into play. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so definitely. And I know that, like, part of the transaction is sometimes just having people take a step back
Yes.
and just breathe, because they get scared. And I understand. So I do commercial as well. So for us, we talk larger numbers.
Right.
It's just part of what we do.
Right.
Even luxury agents that talk about the $3 million listing, they talk about a $3 million listing like a regular agent talks about a $300,000 listing.
Yes.
It's just what they do. It's in their price. That's in their wheelhouse.
Yes.
But for some people, a $300,000 or $250,000 purchase is the biggest purchase they'll ever make.
Yes.
So they get super nervous. They get super scared. And we have to be able to manage not be like, what do you mean? It's just a house.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yes.
You're paying a rent. You're paying either your mortgage or somebody else's mortgage, but you're paying a mortgage.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or you could be renting, and that's sometimes another ballgame there. You're absolutely, and I can identify that because I used to do commercial real estate. It was in the self-storage sector, but you're right. I mean, those were multi-million-dollar deals. And it is nice because once you've been doing those, you get kind of comfortable with the numbers. But there's equal stress, whether you're doing commercial or you're doing residential, because that residential, obviously, that's what they've been saving for years to try to make happen. But on the commercial side, it gets costly. And there have been times, I can remember one commercial real estate deal where it was, this was about a $6 million deal we had going on up in Canada, actually. And the whole deal was just falling apart just at the end. And the owners were like, we're done. And my boss was like, we're done. This isn't going to happen. And I ended up calling the next day, and I talked to one of the partners. And I was just like, it was a little bit of good cop, bad cop. But you just kind of call that other person. You're like saying that, hey, let's get back to the table. Let's try to work this out. We can make this happen. We're able to make that deal complete, and we're able to get through it. But it's just, man, emotions can just take off on you in a blink. And a key thing with that is, one of the things I just kind of point out, which there's some really good resources that are out there on YouTube that you can watch. But you start getting into how the brain works as you're starting to talk a little bit about that, as far as the excitement and the nervousness that can kind of happen. And just not to get too much into it, but there's the upper part of the brain, which is 75%. You sometimes hear about it if you ever get into any kind of neuroscience. That's where the creative thinking happens. And then there's a small lower part. It's the STEM area. It's only like 5% of your brain, and that's where the fight or flight happens. This is what I'm just trying to point out. When you're talking to somebody and they are starting to panic, or they're starting to stress out, or you got that fight, they're starting to fight you, or they're starting to run away, flight, right? They're down in that 5% region of the brain, and they're just starting to fight with you. And what you got to do is you got to just help them relax. And you got to get them into the upper regions of the brain, which is where the creative thinking is, where we start kind of thinking, processing better. But the problem is, sometimes when you're dealing with people, they're not at that rational moment. And one of the things you got to do is just like you said you did earlier. Sometimes you got to sit back, breathe. Let's relax here for a second. And at that moment, what you're doing is you're getting them out of that lower part of the brain and you're helping them get back up into the upper part where they can start thinking again and start going, okay, I can see a way through this. And that's what you're trying to do with your clients.
Wow. That was a quick little tip there. Hopefully help us close more deals.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Kevin, thank you very much for being on here. What I'm
You're
going to
welcome.
do is I'm going to send your information. I'm going to have it all on here so people can reach out to you, other real estate agents in Vegas, and talk to you about possibly coaching and helping them through this. Because I know that everybody wants to close more deals. They just need to figure out how to get there.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much. You have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
All right.